he loses. He is, it's like every day. It's like, hey, loser, get in. We're going losing. Come on. That's what he does. That's what he does. He will lose this one very likely as well.
Well, yeah, first of all, as you sort of implied, it'll create a patchwork of this ridiculous, these citizenship, throughout the country for the first time since the Civil War. Sotomayor, I love, of course, she said the argument here is that the president is violating not just one, but four established Supreme Court precedents. And so she said but that it may continue violating those precedents for anyone who doesn't individually bring and win a case in court. This creates a catch-me-if-you-can problem. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson said where everybody has to have a lawyer and file a lawsuit in order for the government to stop violating people's rights. It's just the stuff that we're debating. You just can't. We just read a tweet that Ivana Trump was not a citizen when she gave birth to all three of Trump's kids. I mean, it's just
and this all started with a judge who was appointed by President Ronald Reagan, telling the Trump administration that the Birthright citizenship executive order is, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. I mean, will the Supreme Court put its stamp of approval on something that is obviously blatantly unconstitutional? If they do, Steph, I don't know what hope we have that the federal court will continue to hold the way it has been holding. And then all bets are off. Then Donald Trump has destroyed our constitutional construct of government. And if they let him do it, the question is, where do we go from there?
Do we have a sliver of hope about Amy Coney Barrett? What is happening? I think Bella and I as women, we recognize that look that she gave him at the State of the Union.
Is she going to...
And any woman that has ever looked at Donald Trump with that has that level of disgust in their face. But
is she going to Sandra Day O'Connor on us, do you think?
That'd be fantastic.
She's crossed over before, hasn't she?
Yeah.
So I do have some hope. I don't know, maybe she will care more about the infants, the newborns, who will be unconstitutionally victimized by Donald Trump's birthright citizenship. Maybe I don't think Alito or Thomas have one beating heart between the two of them, but maybe she does.
Maybe as a religious person, she just finds him as morally repugnant as most of us do. She pressed John Sauer, who desperately needs a lozenge.
He needs a lozenge bad.
Good God, can't Pat Leahy lend him some? Trump's lawyer. She pressed him on whether or not the Trump GOJ believes it needs to follow federal court decisions. She said, General Sauer, I want to ask you potential tension. Well, no, not potential tension, an actual tension I see in answers you gave to Justice Kavanaugh and Kagan. You resisted Justice Kagan when she asked you whether the government would obey within the Second Circuit a precedent distinguishing between opinions and judgments here. Did I understand you correctly to tell Justice Kagan that the government wanted to reserve its right to maybe not follow a Second Circuit precedent, say in New York, because you might disagree with the opinion? I was kind of heartened, at least by, I was like, is that rule of law that still has a heartbeat?
And think about this, the Solicitor General for the United States, that's the person who decides what to argue before the Supreme Court, what positions to take on constitutional matters, when he's basically saying, we may not abide by Federal Circuit Court of Appeals opinions. How the Supreme Court can endorse that position by ruling in Trump's favor, I mean, that will be the Supreme Court basically, just neutering themselves. If the administration says you're not going to follow federal court precedent, well, then of what value are the courts?
Yeah. Let me ask you this one. A coalition of 20 state Democratic attorneys general filed 2 lawsuits claiming the Trump administration is threatening to withhold billions of dollars in transportation and disaster relief funds unless states agree to certain immigration enforcement actions. What's your take on that?
Listen, Donald Trump has lost similar cases already when he tried to stiff the U.S. aid contractors who had already delivered goods and performed services under government contracts to the tune of $2 billion. The court said, oh, hell no, pay those people, right?
Yeah.
Look at what the governor of Maine did. She said, hey, I'll see you in court. And she said that to Donald Trump, not only in his house, but in his face.
Yep.
And she just beat the pants off him, which is not a good look. They beat him in court, right? So he loses. He is, it's like every day. It's like, hey, loser, get in. We're going losing. Come on. That's what he does. that's what he does, he will lose this one very likely as
Yeah.
well. But it all boils down to whether he starts defying court orders. And then, you know what he's left to do, Steph? He has to call in the military to try to help keep him in power once he's destroyed our constitutional construct of government. So all of the abuses, all of the violations of the Constitution will actually make the military's decision easier to disobey unlawful orders, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember he was so gracious with her. Yeah, I'll see you in court. Yeah. I don't think you can be in politics very much longer. Okay. See ya, bitch.
Yeah.
Okay. As Glenn says, get in. We're going losing, Trump. One last one, just on this selective prosecution. You posted Trump's DOJ indicts Wisconsin Judge Dugan, righteous prosecution, or Trump Bondi abuse and overreach. We just talked about Kid Rock shutting down his restaurant, right? The undocumented workers were told to leave the premises to avoid being caught by ICE. Mm-hmm. Is Kid Rock going to get arrested like, Homan's trying to arrest Democratic mayors and whoever else? Downtown Kitchen shuttered over the weekend to avoid immigration agents in at least 3 locations owned by another conservative restaurateur, Steve Smith. Well, we know the answer. They're not going to go after them, right?
We do. The only prosecutions DOJ brings these days are selective prosecutions. They pick and choose who has displeased their leader, and those are the folk who need to be prosecuted, whether they committed crimes or not. Here's the paper-thin, page-and-a-half indictment against, that outlaw, Judge Dugan. Come on now. I read this. This is as thin as it gets, and I actually look forward to Judge Dugan's defense team mopping the floor with Donald Trump's third-rate DOJ lawyers, with apology to third-rate lawyers.
All right. Love you, sir. See you next
Steph.
next
See y'all.
week.
See you guys.
Thanks,
there he
Glenn.
goes. Oh, hey there. It's Stephanie Miller. If you're like me and you love sharp political insight, pointy, you like it pointy and sharp, bold opinions, and a touch of humor to make sense of these crazy times, have I got some fantastic news for you. The Political Voices Network is now on Substack. This is your new go-to for the best in independent media. We're talking about my show streaming daily with episodes on demand, the fearless of journalism of Brian Karem, the brilliant side-splitting satire of John Fugelsang, the unrelenting working class advocacy of Rick Smith, and so much more. Here's the best part. Subscribing is so easy. You can join for free or go to the extra mile. Support these incredible independent voices by signing up for a full subscription starting at just $8. You'll get access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and a chance to directly fuel fearless, unfiltered media. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to politicalvoicesnetwork.com. Hit that subscribe button and become part of the movement keeping truth alive in an era of corporate media overload. Every subscription helps, especially yours. One more time, that is politicalvoicesnetwork.com. Sign up now. Do it.